You want to talk about our workflow?
Yeah, like I said, we have 16 tracks. We have two RX-8s that are mirrored together. That gives us 16 tracks, and we use 2 of those for comms. So basically, we can run 14 wires, including 2 booms in there. So even with the 2 booms, we still have 12 that we can use without any issue, actors that we need to mic. We got rid of a lot of cable, let me tell you, when putting those in, because we use Dante out of the RX-8s and to Dante in on the Kantar X3. And that's made a big, big difference. And everybody familiar with Dante? Yeah. I know Cujo can probably, I consider him one of our local scholars on Dante as far as knowledge base. But basically, we've got one cable in and out. It's beautiful. We got rid of probably about 10 or 15 pounds of cable.
One thing that we do with our, we take the use Cat 6 out and we go to a little switch in the back of the cart that's 12 volts. So, it'll run off the cart battery. So they just kind of make their own little network and then you go straight into the Dante port.
Yeah, and we still can control the transmitters, not easily as Michael can, because he has a trim knob available to turn down the gain, but basically we can go into the menu of each of the receivers and I can adjust the gain there. It's not as quick as his, but it's an advantage that we have.
And if you know you're going to be doing it or having to use that function, it's punched. We just leave it up on the receiver. It's
easy to change, but Michael can do it much quicker.
Yeah.
With his option, but that's what I decided to settle for.
With the RX-8s, do they integrate network-wise with like Dante Virtual Sound Card and other, like as a receiver for from other sources, non-Zaxcom?
Well, they fit into the Dante system.
If
so
it's Dante, it plugs into Dante.
Yeah. So we actually use the Dante Virtual Sound Card at the factory to test everything.
Yeah.
And that works very
and
very
I
well.
tell you, it's been flawless on our last project because we have 8 channels duplicated in our bag or portable rig. So we have another RX-8 in there, and once we set them all up and routed everything, it's been no issue. Even when it's been many weeks between pulling out the bag, it's
set up ready to go. We just have to if we change the frequency, that's all we have to
do.
The frequencies.
But Dante wise, it's set it and forget it. Or at least that's been our experience.
Later, I invite you to look in the back of the room where we have all the gear. We do have an RX-8 back there, and an interesting thing that we put into the RX-8 is power over Ethernet. So if you want to use RX-8 on your cart, that's fine. You just plug it into the Dante and away you go. If you want to remote it off the cart, you could get a power over Ethernet injector, which will put the power on the Ethernet cable, and you can run the receiver out 100 or 200 feet away from the cart, and you're going to get that audio coming back to you without having to power it. Yes?
We did that when you sent us the RX-8 for testing.
Oh, okay.
I did exactly that. I have PoE switches in my rack. We ran an Ethernet cable out to the other side of the set, plugged in the RX-8, instantly on the network. Flawless performance.
Yeah, I mean, RX-8, it's our newest receiver, and just to talk a moment about the receivers, the receiver we talked about earlier, the MRX-414, is our standard receiver block, meaning that it's just a small module, and we have multiple places where that can plug in now. It plugs into our Nova recorder directly, so that, and you'll see this when you look at the back, what's going on in the back of the room. The Nova is small. It's very small. It's very lightweight. But these receivers literally plug into it, so that you've got this 8-channel mixer recorder with 8 channels of receiver, and it's smaller than a lot of other recorders that are out there, lighter weight, less power. So we're all that's one of our things. We're into that. We'll talk about that. But those modules, they'll come out of that. They'll go into the RX-8. We have another portable package called the RX-12 that actually accepts 6 of those modules. So in something that'll fit in your sound bag, you can actually have 24 channels of receiver in a very, very small package. We have a little plug-on thing called the RX-4 that when you plug that right onto the module, it makes it into just a standalone 4-channel receiver. So, we're trying to make sure that we stay very modular so that if you're going to be working on your sound cart one day and then maybe you're going to go into a bag, you can actually pull the module out of the receiver on the cart and put it into the Nova mixer recorder and just go off and do what you want to do. The interesting thing is that if you're using the Nova on a cart and the receivers are in it, when you take a mixer recorder off the cart, the Nova specifically, and drop it into a sound bag, you've got the mixer and the wireless with you. You're not reconfiguring, a whole new situation to make sure you're good. If you were good on the cart, you drop it in the bag, and you are just ready to go. And that also includes the Zaxnet transmitter in there so that, from the Nova, you're able to do all the remote control of gain and timecode transmission and remote start-stop, everything that it does, which is pretty neat. Just something I'll mention real quick before I give it back is that we more recently added a push feature, as we call it, for the track names, so that when you change the track name in the Nova and you then push those track names to the transmitters, it automatically will relabel those transmitters so that when those transmitters go and record, the transmitter metadata will have the same name as the track in the recorder, and then those names are being broadcast by the packs to the IFBs, so that when you tune into a transmitter, you read out that same name on the IFB, and that's the full circle of tying the recorder into the transmitters into the IFB, which is pretty neat stuff.
I have all my transmitters since I'm on a Diva. That functionality doesn't work for me, but I can see in reality world where that's a great feature. Having all my transmitters labeled T1, T2, T3, T4, T5. Right. When we Zax convert, I get a folder of T1, T3, T4, T5.
That's right.
And if you're changing the name within the same card,
yes.
Am I going to get Bob, Jane, and Harry?
I would have to say yes.
Yeah,
I haven't personally done it, but it should. Yeah.
It's a good organizational feature for shows where they want to grab all of Jane's dialogue off of that card, and they don't have to go grab Harry's and
exactly
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the more places the metadata is correct and automatically correct, the better for the production, certainly.
Another great thing I gotta say for the MRX and the hot swappable receiving functionality if you're working on a cart and a bag situation is the cost effectiveness of not having to buy 2 sets of receivers, one for the cart, one for your bag. It's pop out, pop in, and you're good to go. And that was a huge benefit I find in just managing costs in terms of creating a sound package.
Yeah, no, I looked at it a little differently because I wanted to have a backup if necessary instead of swapping them out. So
you have them too?
Yeah.
And if we needed 24 tracks, we could just pull the third one off and just run it through Dante.
Yeah.
Just set up the computer real quick and boop, 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 boop.
When I get my Maserati, I'll be able to afford another set of receivers.
It's my beater car.
One of the things we found useful with the RX-8 for perhaps mixers that are on a tighter budget is if you're working on a cart and you need to go suddenly into your bag, you just unplug the RX-8 from the cart, drop it in the bag, and everything runs with you. like you say, not having to buy a second set of receivers. It's
But the other thing, I
in
just,
that tiny little box right there. And
Cujo,
it's 5 seconds.
when you're going into your bag, are you using Dante or AES with the RX-8?
Dante.
Wouldn't you have to reset that recorder, that receiver to work with that recorder because
No,
it's
the
set up
way
with
the
the
Dante architecture works is once you set up, if you're using Dante controller to do your setup.
Yeah.
Once the Dante network is awake and alive,
Okay.
it recognizes whatever devices you plug into it, and those devices retain their settings when you unplug them and plug them into something else.
Okay. I
So
could.
if I had an X3 in 2 bags, or I had an X3 on the cart and an X3 in the bag, once I've set up the cart and then once I've set up the bag individually, I can take the RX-8, plug it into the cart and plug it into the bag, and the Dante network will recognize it on each individual machine and
As is.
route according to whatever you set it up the first time.
Okay.
It remembers what.
Yeah, it's a
what
memory.
plugged into.
Right. Because we, with the RX-8s for us, we've done one show with it, so it was this is going to be for a bag, this is going to be for the cart, and just because Dante is new for me,
Yeah.
and it is very basic of how we use Dante, is just we only, use it as to receive, signal from one place. We're not sending anything out Dante, so learned what I needed to get by on the show. I will take a Dante class, but
And I
Dante
will-
1 or Dante 2.